Welcome to the podcast about investing in startups, where existing investors can learn how to get the best deal possible. And those that have never before invested in startups can learn the keys to success from the venture experts. Your host is Nick Moran, and this is The Full Ratchet.
Welcome to another special release of Investor Stories. On this installment, the experts discuss a startup that they did not invest in, why they passed, and if there was a key learning that now informs their approach. Here's the segment called Why I Passed. On today's special segment, we have MG Siegler of GV. MG, can you tell us a story about a good or a bad pass? A story about a startup that you passed on?
One that sticks in my mind is several years ago at this point, but we were looking at Snapchat. Snapchat obviously now is a public company and well-known, and it was well-known then. It was a highly capitalized. And that was sort of part of the problem, honestly, was that we were going to be, when we were looking at the company, it was already pretty late stage. And as I noted, I still like to do earlier stage when at all possible, but it just felt like Snapchat was one of these products that was obviously resonating with a newer generation in a way that Facebook wasn't, and some of the other social networks weren't necessarily. It was a tough call. I think ultimately it probably didn't make sense for either side for us to get involved, just given, again, the relative earlier stage nature of GV. But the company, went public, of course, shortly, not too long thereafter, and then had some rocky times in the public markets. And I think that it seems like they've turned a corner a little bit, and now are coming into their own as a public company. But it was certainly a tough call and a very debated thing at the time.
On today's special segment, we have Grace Isford of Canvas Ventures. Grace, can you tell us a story about a good or a bad pass? A story about a startup that you passed on?
Yeah, I guess it's a good pass. So there was a founder we really, really liked and had just a great company, awesome metrics, and we're really excited to invest. We were very close. And then at the last minute, we had a bad reference check came through. And so it was one of those tough ones where everything was basically perfect, but this deal besides the one reference check. But that was enough for us to kind of rip the Band-Aid. And unfortunately, we didn't invest there. So time will tell, how good investment it was. But I do try, and my firm does try to hold ourselves to really high ethical standards. And so if there's any time that ever is called into question, even a shade of a question, we just don't invest.
Wow. So was that related to working with the founder, or was that maybe a customer reference that was negative?
It was a working with the founder reference. So someone who had worked with the person in the past and just really did not have a good experience. And so, again, double clicking also that in this time frame, really important to do your reference checks, because those are probably even more important than actually talking to the entrepreneur, right? Making sure this person is a hard worker, works with all other people, is a leader, right?
Out of curiosity, is that a reference that the founder provided or one that you guys found?
We try to do both for every company. I think that one was one we probably had found, but we usually would do both.
Got it.
I'd recommend doing both, some that the founder or entrepreneur recommends and others that you can source through your network.
On today's special segment, we have John Vrionis of Unusual Ventures. John, can you tell us a story about a good or a bad pass? A story about a startup that you passed on?
Oh, there are many good ones, Nick. And so it always pains me to reflect on that.
Apologies.
Yep. No, this is how we learn too, right? Pinterest. Pinterest was probably, if I had to pick one that was most painful, it was Pinterest. Ben Silverman,
ouch,
fantastic founder. Yeah. He was in something I started at Lightspeed called the Lightspeed Fellowship Program, was clearly talented, was working on a different idea at the time. It didn't work out, and, then went on to found Pinterest. And, our group, and I'm, largely responsible as, one of the more senior people at the time, we just could not get our minds around the opportunity, the potential. And obviously we're completely wrong about it. So, love Ben, but couldn't see the market opportunity. And we did a huge disservice to our LPs by not being an investor in Pinterest, if Ben had allowed it, of course.
Any adjustments to your approach or process, or was it just kind of a market that you didn't quite have a handle on?
Yeah, you have to be more open-minded. Candidly, we didn't have any women on our team at the time. It's one of the reasons I'm, just one of many, but diversity matters, right? Diverse teams make better decisions, right? You have to have diverse points of view. And I'd like to believe if we had more diverse opinions around the table, we might have understood the opportunity, because particularly early on, it was largely used by a female demographic. And so I think a room of men did not appreciate how big of an opportunity it was.
Got it.
And that's hindsight 2020, but it's one observation.
On today's special segment, we have Ash Rust of Sterling Road. Ash, can you tell us about a good or a bad pass, a story about a startup that you passed on?
Sure. In 2016, I was deciding whether or not I should be an angel investor or raise a fund or be an entrepreneur. And I was coaching a company that was in the retail space. Incredible company, great founders. They just left Square. They've now gone on to raise at a more than $500 million valuation. And I passed because I was focused on, hoarding my cash as an entrepreneur rather than taking those kinds of opportunities. So, that one stings.
Wow.
Do you want to do a good pass?
If you got one, sure.
Sure, yeah. So this kind of thing actually happens to me fairly often. On occasion, maybe once or twice a year, I'll coach a company for 2 to 3 months, and then they'll get into an accelerator program at the end of that coaching time period, and then ghost me completely. So I won't hear from them for 3 months, and then when they come around to their demo day, they'll be like, they'll approach me and say, okay, now are you ready to fund us?
Yeah, I get that all the time.
Yes. So I consider all of those good passes because, and the reason is that, at least the way I do it, I think that you can absolutely buy a lottery ticket in one of those situations, but that's just really not the way that I work. And it's a really clear articulation that the relationship meant less to them than the money. And so that's totally fine. I completely understand that approach to building a business. It's just not the way that I want to partner with founders.
Love it. Love it. I've gotten into plenty of arguments with folks, healthy arguments, friendly arguments, but people that can't understand why I would pass for such a flippant reason, right? But to me, it's not flippant. It's sort of the core of relationship building and, their ability to engage with folks and continue to raise and build meaningful relationships and momentum.
Right. Oh, yeah. It needs to be authentic, our relationship, if it's going to last years, because don't they want authentic relationships? I'm sure they do.
That will conclude this installment of Investor Stories. If you're enjoying the program and would like to see it continue, take a moment and leave a 5-star review in iTunes. Also, if you'd like updates on new content from TFR, as well as the top 10 VC articles every week, go to fullratchet.net and sign up for the newsletter. Okay, that will wrap things up for today. Until next time, over-prepare, choose carefully, and invest confidently. Thanks for joining me.